Money doesn't change you. That's the bedtime story people tell to feel morally superior while staying broke. Money doesn't inject a new personality into your veins. It pulls the curtain back. It reveals what was already inside you: your discipline, your fear, your envy, your hunger, your need for approval. It reveals you, and it reveals everyone around you. You don't discover yourself when you're broke. You discover yourself when you have choices and everyone starts watching. You've felt this shift, even in small doses. One good month, one unexpected payment, one promotion, one client. Your bank balance rises, and suddenly the room rearranges itself. Friends who were busy start replying faster. People who never cared about your goals become curious. Family members who preached humility start implying you should help out. Even you start bargaining with your own values. You tell yourself you'll stay grounded, but you catch your mind scrolling prices, imagining upgrades, rehearsing conversations in your head, measuring people's smiles, and noticing your morals start negotiating the moment comfort becomes possible. That's the dark truth nobody says out loud. Money is not just currency. It's power. It's perception. It's a signal. It tells the world what you can afford to refuse. And humans are animals who obey signals. The same people who ignore your words will suddenly respect your numbers, not because they became wiser, because the hierarchy became clearer. Machiavelli warned about this reality long before Instagram made it glossy. The world does not reward good intentions. The world rewards outcomes. If you can't protect yourself, your morality becomes a costume other people can rip off whenever it's convenient. If you can't fund your independence, you will eventually sell pieces of your time to someone who can. And once you are dependent, you are manageable. So, no, money doesn't make you evil. But it exposes whether you were weak. It exposes whether you can say no. It exposes whether you're addicted to being liked, because the moment you have resources, the requests arrive, the guilt arrives, the parasites arrive, the we language arrives. We're so proud of you. We always knew you'd make it. And if you're not careful, you'll buy love with your wallet and call it generosity. You'll fund other people's chaos just to avoid being disliked. This video isn't about becoming rich to flex. It's about seeing money clearly so it doesn't play you. Because money has two traps. It can make you a victim when you don't have it, and it can make you a slave when you do. Either way, you lose sovereignty. And the worst part is, you won't notice the chains at first, because they'll be gold and everyone will clap. In the next minutes, I'm going to give you 10 dark truths about money, Machiavelli's warnings, so you can build wealth without losing your mind, your relationships, or your freedom. And the first truth will sting, because it destroys the most popular lie on earth, that hard work alone is the main lever. Truth 1. Money is proof, not paper. People don't believe your potential, they believe your receipts. You can be intelligent, kind, and hardworking, but until you can point to outcomes, the world treats you like a rumor. That's why two men can say the same sentence, and only one gets respected. One has numbers behind his words, the other has hope. Money is a crude language, but it's the language hierarchies understand. Your income, your savings, your assets, these aren't just finances. They are armor for your claims and a passport through closed doors. Picture a meeting where you pitch an idea. If you're broke, they interrogate you like a dreamer. If you're profitable, they call it vision. Same brain, same mouth, different proof. That's Machiavelli's point. Perception governs the crowd, and proof governs perception. Stop begging to be taken seriously. Build receipts until seriousness is forced. Truth 2. Money buys time, not happiness. Happiness is too slippery to purchase, too dependent on meaning and chemistry. But time is brutally measurable. Money buys you the ability to say no. No to the boss who disrespects you. No to the project that steals your soul. No to the relationship that survives because rent is due. Money buys options. The option to quit, to relocate, to recover, to hire help, to learn faster, to rest without panic. The rich don't wake up glowing with joy because they're rich. They wake up calmer because their day is adjustable. Truth 3. Money makes people honest. Not morally honest, strategically honest. It reveals motives the way heat reveals weak metal. When you have nothing, people can afford to be generous because it costs them nothing. When you start winning, the same people become busy, or suddenly curious, or subtly critical. Some will respect you more. Others will try to humble you, tax you, or attach themselves to you. Watch closely. Money doesn't create envy, entitlement, or loyalty. It exposes what was already inside them. Here's the test. When money enters the room, watch who speaks in contracts. The "can you spot me" friend, the cousin with a business idea that needs your wallet, the co-worker who suddenly wants a partnership. Even compliments shift. "You're lucky" becomes a way to erase your effort and soften their jealousy. And your own mind will get tempted too, spending to prove you've arrived, buying gifts to buy peace, funding drama to avoid being called selfish. Money turns every relationship into a negotiation, unless you set rules first, before the first favor is asked. This is why boundaries matter more. Machiavelli would call these political facts. Humans organize themselves into ranks, and ranks are maintained through signals. Money is one of the loudest signals on earth, which is why people pretend not to care about it while secretly obeying it. They'll say, "Money doesn't matter," right before they treat the wealthier man like he's more important. In public, they worship virtue. In private, they worship outcomes. The prince who understands this doesn't complain. He prepares. So, don't treat money like a spiritual taboo. Treat it like a weapon, dangerous if you're naive, protective if you're trained. Because once you understand proof, options, and revealed motives, you'll notice something unsettling. Money changes relationships faster than it changes lifestyle. And that's where the real war begins. Truth 4. Your income is a social threat. People don't resent you for having money. They resent what your money says about them. Money is a mirror, and most people cannot stand their reflection. Your rise forces them to answer an uncomfortable question. If he can do it, why didn't I? That question burns. So instead of facing it, they rewrite you. They call you lucky. They call you obsessed. They call you arrogant. They don't need to destroy your bank account. They only need to destroy the story of how you got it, so they can keep believing their own excuses. This is why the first punishment for success is not poverty. It's social tension. The room gets colder, the jokes get sharper, the compliments become backhanded. People start monitoring you like your progress is an insult. And if you don't understand the hierarchy game, you'll make the worst mistake. You'll try to soothe them. You'll downplay your wins. You'll apologize for your ambition. You'll shrink to keep the tribe comfortable. That's not humility, that's submission. Truth 5. People don't want you to be rich, just stable enough to stay predictable. They'll tolerate your improvement as long as it doesn't change the relationship dynamic. They want you doing better, but not better than them. They want you safe, but not free. They want you comfortable, but not powerful. Because the moment you become powerful, you stop being controllable. You stop showing up out of obligation. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop needing approval. And that terrifies people who benefit from your dependence. Watch how the tribe reacts when your rise becomes real. When you start earning more, you become less available. You stop attending every event. You stop explaining yourself. You stop needing the group. And suddenly your absence becomes a moral crime. You think you're too good. You forgot your roots. Money changed you. No, it changed your rank. And rank changes the rules. Truth 6. Guilt is the poor man's tax on the ambitious. When people can't control you with authority, they control you with emotion. They don't say, "Give me your money." They say, "After everything we've done for you." They don't say, "Stay in your place." They say, "Remember where you came from." They don't say, "You owe us obedience." They say, "Family helps family." It sounds noble, but it functions like a leash. Guilt is a weapon used by people who have no leverage except your conscience. You'll see it in relatives who suddenly need help, not investment, not structure, not accountability, just a transfer. And if you offer a solution that requires discipline, they get offended. Because they didn't come for guidance, they came for extraction. You'll see it in friends who shame your boundaries. You stop paying for everyone, and they call you stingy. You stop tolerating chaos, and they call you cold. You stop being available at all hours, and they say you changed. Translation: you stopped being easy. You'll see it in partners who test your generosity. They don't ask for respect first, they ask for money first. They gauge how quickly you surrender. They watch whether you buy peace, whether you fund irresponsibility, whether you confuse love with rescue. Money doesn't corrupt love. It reveals whether love was real or transactional. Machiavelli would call this the politics of belonging. Humans fear exile, so they pressure the rising man to keep paying the membership fee, time, attention, gifts, humility, performances. But your future cannot be built on guilt. If you let guilt run your finances, you will become the richest slave in the room. And now here's the twist most people don't see coming. The external enemies are manageable. You can set boundaries. You can reduce access. You can move quietly. The harder enemy is internal. Because once money enters your life, it doesn't only change others, it rewires you. It changes your identity. It changes your appetite for risk. It changes what you tolerate. And if you don't understand that psychology, money will play you from the inside. Truth 7. Lifestyle inflation is a silent prison. Money comes in, and you think you're upgrading your life. But what you're often upgrading is your monthly obligations. Better car, better apartment, better clothes, better dinners, subscriptions, travel, a new identity to maintain. And suddenly, the money that was supposed to buy freedom is now buying pressure. You're not richer, you're just running faster. You built a nicer cage. This is how people end up making more than they ever dreamed, while feeling more trapped than they were when they were broke. Because the higher your lifestyle, the more terrified you are of losing it. And fear is not freedom. Fear is a leash. Truth 8. Debt is obedience in disguise. Debt is the most polite form of slavery ever invented, because it doesn't come with chains, it comes with a smile and a signature. But if you owe, you are controllable. You can be forced to tolerate what you would otherwise refuse. A boss becomes louder when he knows you have payments due. A bank becomes your silent ruler. Even relationships change when debt enters. You can't leave easily, you can't take risks, you can't say no without consequences. Debt takes your future and mortgages it to your past decisions. Machiavelli would call it dependence. And dependence is the core weakness of every prince. If you rely on someone else's money, you will eventually obey someone else's rules. They might call it terms, interest, contract, expectations, but the result is the same. Your freedom becomes negotiable. Truth 9. Money amplifies your shadow. This is where most people lie to themselves. They think the danger of money is greed, like greed is some monster that only lives in billionaires. No. The danger is that money increases your capacity to act on whatever you already worship. If you worship status, money turns you into a performer. If you worship control, money turns you paranoid. If you worship pleasure, money turns you into an addict with better packaging. If you worship validation, money turns you into a walking donation box, buying love, buying loyalty, buying applause. Carl Jung would tell you, the shadow doesn't disappear when you get rich, it gets louder because you now have fuel. The shadow is the part of you that wants to dominate, impress, punish, hoard, prove. When you're broke, the shadow is mostly fantasy. When you have money, the shadow becomes action. And if you don't integrate it, if you don't admit what you crave, you don't control it. It controls you. That's why some wealthy people become insufferable. Money didn't make them arrogant. It removed the social fear that used to keep their arrogance hidden. And on the other side, some people become terrified hoarders. They finally get money, and instead of feeling safe, they become obsessed with losing it. Because money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy inner stability. If your identity is fragile, wealth will expose that fragility. So here's the question you should ask yourself. What do you worship? Because money will fund it. Money is an amplifier. It funds your best self if you're disciplined, and it funds your worst self if you're unconscious. It reveals your God. This is why making money is not the finish line. It's the beginning of a new psychological game. And the final truth, the one that separates the wealthy from the merely rich, is this. The real skill is not earning. The real skill is protecting power. Most people can hustle. Almost nobody can defend. And in the next section, I'm going to show you the Machiavellian rule that keeps empires alive. Strategy beats income when it comes to staying free. Truth 10 is the one most people learn too late, after they've earned the money and still feel hunted. The game is not making money. The game is keeping power. Accumulation is impressive. Protection is rare. Plenty of people can hustle into a higher income. Very few can build a life where their money can't be used against them by banks, bosses, family, partners, or their own impulses. Machiavelli's princes weren't destroyed because they lacked ambition. They were destroyed because they lacked defense. They borrowed armies, relied on favors, trusted unstable alliances, and mistook short-term wins for long-term security. Money works the same way. If your wealth is dependent on one fragile pillar, one job, one client, one relationship, one platform, then you're not wealthy. You're just temporarily paid. So here is the Machiavellian protocol. No fluff, no slogans, just laws. Rule 1. Invisibility. Move quietly. Don't advertise your next level. Don't narrate your income. Don't show the upgrade the moment you can afford it. Attention is not harmless. It attracts requests, envy, imitation, and scrutiny. The loud rich become targets. The quiet, wealthy become untouchable. Machiavelli understood that appearances can be managed, but exposure is dangerous. You don't need everyone to know you're winning. You need your position to be stable. Rule 2. Allocation. Build a fortress. A fortress is not a luxury. It's a buffer that buys you time when life attacks. Cash reserves, skills that can generate income anywhere, assets that don't depend on your daily mood, and multiple streams so one collapse doesn't drag your whole life down. Most people allocate money like children, pleasure first, defense later. That's why they're always one emergency away from panic. A prince doesn't spend like a peasant who found gold. He builds walls. Rule 3. Boundaries. Never fund chaos. This is where weak people lose. They confuse generosity with surrender. They hand money to undisciplined people and call it kindness, then act shocked when the same person returns with the same problem. Money given without standards is not help, it's enabling. Invest only in discipline. People who show effort, accountability, structure. If someone punishes you for saying no, they were never asking for help. They were demanding control. Rule 4. Optics. Be generous strategically, not emotionally. Emotional generosity is how you get manipulated. Guilt donations, pressure spending, rescuing to buy love. Strategic generosity is deliberate. You choose where your resources go because it aligns with your values and strengthens your position. Sometimes you give quietly. Sometimes you give through systems. Sometimes you don't give at all, and you don't explain. Explanations invite debate. Debate invites erosion. If you apply these laws, something strange happens. Your life becomes dangerous in a quiet way, not flashy, not loud. Dangerous because you can walk away. You can leave the disrespectful job. You can end the draining relationship. You can refuse the guilt tax. You can disappear from the circus without begging for permission. That is power. And once you taste that kind of power, you'll understand why most people stay broke even when they earn more. They're chasing income, not sovereignty. The final section is where we seal this. The richest man is not the one with the biggest number. It's the one who can say no and mean it. Let's end this the way Machiavelli would end it, with a principle that doesn't care about your feelings. Money is not the goal. Sovereignty is. Because you can have money and still be owned. Owned by your lifestyle, owned by your debt, owned by other people's expectations, owned by your own appetite for status. You can earn 6 figures and still wake up terrified because you built a life where saying no would collapse everything. That's not wealth. That's a well-decorated cage. The richest man is the one who can say no. No to disrespect without fear of losing rent money. No to manipulation without needing to explain himself. No to a boss who treats him like property. No to family guilt without trembling. No to a friend's chaos without being dragged into the fire. No to the deal that looks good but costs his soul. That's what money is for. Not to impress strangers, not to buy toys, not to win applause. Money is the tool that buys you freedom of refusal. It buys you the ability to choose your life instead of negotiating it. Machiavelli warned that dependence makes you controllable. If you rely on someone else's platform, money, approval, or protection, you will eventually bend. You will censor yourself. You will tolerate what you hate. You will betray your own instincts for stability. But independence makes you untouchable, not because you're arrogant, but because you're unbribable. You can't be threatened with exile when you have your own shelter. You can't be controlled with fear when your foundations are strong. And that's the paradox. Money isn't freedom. Money is the tool that buys freedom if you don't become its servant. Because the moment money becomes your identity, you lose. The moment you need to look rich, you become needy again, just in a more expensive way. The moment you stop defending your peace, you're right back where you started, except now you're bleeding in designer clothes. So, take the 10 truths and use them like armor. Let money reveal people faster. Let it reveal you faster. Use it to build a fortress, not a performance. Keep your moves quiet. Keep your standards high. Keep your boundaries clean. And remember, the goal isn't to be liked for what you can provide. The goal is to be respected because you cannot be controlled. In the next video, I'll show you how to make money silently, without telling anyone, without advertising your next level, and without attracting parasites who think your progress is their opportunity. And I'll show you how to spot financial leeches early, before they ever get close enough to tax your ambition. If this hit, subscribe. And if you want the parts I can't say publicly, the uncensored strategy, the deeper mechanics, then you already know where that join button leads. Most won't click it. That's the point. Here's the mistake that keeps people trapped for decades. They think money is the finish line. They treat money like a scoreboard, like a trophy, like proof they finally matter. So they chase it loudly, spend it emotionally, and build a life that looks expensive but feels fragile. That isn't wealth, that's performance. Real wealth is quieter. Real wealth is sovereignty. It's the ability to live without begging, without explaining, without tolerating disrespect just to keep the lights on. The richest man is not the one with the biggest number. The richest man is the one who can look at an offer, a request, a threat, a guilt trip, a manipulation attempt, and say one word calmly, no. Machiavelli would call that independence, because dependence makes you controllable. If you need their job, you swallow their disrespect. If you need their approval, you censor your truth. If you need their money, you accept their terms. And once you accept terms, you're no longer free, you're managed. This is why money is political. It doesn't just buy things. It buys leverage. It buys options. It buys distance from environments that poison you. It buys time to think instead of panic. It buys the ability to walk away with your dignity intact. And dignity is not a moral luxury, it's a survival tool. A man without the ability to walk away becomes negotiable. A negotiable man becomes prey. But here's the warning, inside the warning. Money can also enslave you if you worship it. If your identity is your income, you will never feel safe. If your peace depends on a number, you will always fear the drop. If your value comes from status, you'll keep buying applause and calling it success. That's why the dark truths matter. They aren't there to make you cynical. They're there to make you impossible to control. So let this be the final seal. Money is not freedom. Money is the tool that buys freedom if you don't become its servant, if you don't inflate your cage, if you don't chain yourself with debt, if you don't fund chaos out of guilt, if you don't announce your progress like you're asking the world for permission to win. Move quietly, build the fortress, set the boundaries, protect your mind, and understand the paradox. The moment you stop needing people to validate your success, you become harder to manipulate. When you stop needing money to prove yourself, you start using money correctly, as defense, as leverage, as space to live on your own terms. And if this hits something in you, don't just nod and scroll. Apply one law today. Make one decision that your weaker self would avoid. That's how sovereignty is built, through small refusals that compound into power. In the next video, I'll show you how to make money silently without telling anyone, so you can build in peace while the world stays distracted. And I'll also show you how to spot financial parasites early, before they ever get close enough to tax your future. Subscribe if you're building something real. And if you want the strategies I can't say publicly, the ones that YouTube punishes, those are behind the join button. Most won't go that far. That's the point.